Today we are going to cover some lower body banded stretches. So when I say lower body, these stretches are going to be geared towards your hips, towards your lower back, maybe even towards your ankles. They will make your squat better, and I do say will. If you stick with them over time, it'll improve your mobility. It'll make us more comfortable in those squat positions. They also are really good to add in either before you work out, after you work out, on recovery days to just get some blood flow. Continue working on your mobility, because mobility is ultimately going to lead to more efficient movement in what we do. I think it's also important to realize, like, if something's starting to feel tight, definitely make sure you start to get ahead of it and add these into your routine. Don't neglect the mobility piece, because that's when we neglect that, things start to get tight, we start compensating, we start moving poorly, and then sometimes we're forced to take some rest. So hopefully these will prevent you from having to take that forced rest. The first thing I would recommend doing is grabbing a band. So I like to use the green band. I got this one from Rogue Fitness. There's also a black band, which is gonna have a little bit more tension and resistance, but I think the green band's perfect for these stretches. So you definitely wanna make sure your band has some thickness to it. You don't wanna use just a red band where you don't really feel much resistance at all. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my band, I'm gonna hook it just around my rig post. From here, I just pull it through, and then I pull it nice and tight. I always like to make sure it lays pretty evenly so I don't feel like one side of the band is tighter than the other. The next piece is gonna be, I'm just gonna step into the band. So I've got it around my hip height. I'll see how that feels when I get into it. I might have to lower it a little bit, but we'll see. Then I'm gonna take a couple steps out. Notice that I put the band right in my hip crease of the leg that is closest to the rig post where the band is attached. From here, I'm just gonna come down to my hands and my knees, continue kind of moving the band right into that hip crease. And then I'm gonna gently lean forward and just let my knee roll out. So what this is doing is the band is gently pulling that hip out, pulling the knee out as I'm squeezing my butt, driving my belly button down and forwards. And then I can kind of just move around in this position, feeling a nice good, it's almost like a traction, it's pulling on that hip. That feels super good. So just relaxing here. And I'm gonna hold this for 1 to 2 minutes, focusing on my breath, driving my breath into wherever I feel the stretch. You may feel this in a couple different spots. Feels really nice in my front hip. I also feel it in my back hip because I'm driving my hips down and forward, so I'm also getting a nice hip flexor stretch in my back hip. So depending on where you're tight, you may either feel it in the front or the back hip. This is also a great 2-in-1 stretch. So I'm gonna take this into a hamstring stretch. So I'm gonna leave the same leg in the band, leaving the band right in my hip crease. Now I'm gonna come forwards, taking a couple steps out to where I feel the band pulling back on my femur. I'm gonna keep this leg relatively straight, and then I'm gonna reach down, hinging, trying to get my fingers to the floor. I can hold here, breathing for a couple seconds. And then I like to pulse and stand tall, pushing my hips forward. Then I'm gonna come back down and I'm gonna hold. Again, the goal is to keep my knee as straight as possible so I get a really great stretch through my hamstring, and it's assisted by this band pulling back on my femur. All right, so for our third stretch, this one's super awesome. It's almost reversing what we've done. It's focusing on, you're gonna feel it a lot in your quad. It kind of reminds me of the couch stretch. I'm gonna leave the band hooked in the exact spot on the rig. So once we've done our hip stretch and our hamstring stretch on both legs, we're gonna come to this stretch. So I'm gonna step into it with my right leg, and I'm gonna bring the band just under my butt. Then I'm gonna step all the way back. The leg with the band, the knee is gonna go on the ground. From here, I wanna think about, I don't wanna be in an arched position because I'm not gonna feel much. So I wanna think about if I have a belt buckle, I'm gonna pull my belt buckle up, pulling my hips up, keeping my ribs down, and immediately I start to feel an amazing stretch from the top of my hip all the way down through my quad. I'm just gonna maintain that tight midline and that good neutral hip position, and I'm just gonna hold here and breathe into wherever I feel the stretch. So what I wanna make sure from this side that we're not doing is we wanna think about our ribs and we wanna think about our hips. We don't want our hips to dump forward, and we don't want our ribs to flare. So what that would look like is my ribs are flaring, my hips are behind me, and now I'm not feeling much of a stretch. What I wanna think about doing is pulling my hips up and keeping my ribs down so everything is connected all the way down to my knee. Speaking of our knee, we wanna make sure that we're not putting too much pressure on our patella or our patella tendon. This can also, if we are putting too much pressure, it can flare up bursitis in the knee. So if you feel like that is something that could happen to you. Make sure you grab an ab mat, grab a yoga mat, grab something with some cushion so we can maintain the hold for 1 to 2 minutes without feeling like we're just destroying or putting too much pressure on our knee, and instead we're focusing on the great stretch that we feel. The next series of stretches I'm going to take you through are going to target our hips. So the outside of our hip, the inside of our hip, and our hamstring as well. I like to do these with my classes. We don't need a rig. All we need is ourselves and a band. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to hook the band just under the ball of your foot. Think about right where your toes end, okay? From here, I'm going to lay all the way back. I'm going to try to keep my leg as straight as possible while I'm driving my other leg long, okay? So we don't want this knee to bend. We want to keep reaching the other leg towards the opposite wall, pulling our toe towards our face. Just gonna hang out here. You can kick into the band. So I'm gonna kick and apply pressure. Count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm gonna release. I'm gonna see if I can go a little bit further. I would do 5 sets of the 5 active hold for 5 seconds and then release. And see if we can just get a little bit of a deeper stretch through our hamstring, even through our calf. So once we've done that, the next piece, I like to leave this leg in the band. I'm gonna cross over. So I like to bring my hand to the side, crossing, feeling a really great stretch, holding, counting to 5, and then I like to open. So I like to use these as dynamic. So I'm gonna open as much as I can. That would be 1. I would go through 10 efforts or going through this series for a whole minute. Crossing and then opening. Seeing if you can get the toe almost to the ground. The last piece you can take this into is a banded pigeon. So once I'm here, then I'm just gonna bend my leg like I'm creating a pigeon on the floor. Again, continuing to pull my leg long or push my opposite heel long. And then I'm just gonna hold and try to pull my foot towards my face. And then I like to drive my knee out with my elbow. Feels really, really awesome. So I'm just gonna hold here 60 seconds or more, and then I will switch legs, go through that entire process on my other leg. So the last banded stretch we're gonna go over today is a banded squat on the wall. This one's really awesome. You just need yourself, your band, and a wall. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna lay down. I like to start by putting my band kind of under my back. I'm gonna come forwards. I'm gonna get situated. Takes a second. Okay, get situated. I'm gonna place one band on my knee first. Doesn't matter which knee. The other band goes onto the knee. From here, I like to try to pull myself towards the wall. Ideally, we want our butt to be in contact with the wall. I'm getting there. I'm still work in progress. And the other piece is we don't want our toes pointed out. We want to try to have our toes pointed as far forward as we can. From here, we're going to think about driving our knees out and gently getting a nice good stretch through our hips. I also like to think about trying to keep my ribs down as I'll bring my arms over, and this will also aid in working on the overhead position. Notice in this position, I'm trying to keep my big toe pressed into the wall, but also let my knees fall out at the same time. So I get a good deep stretch through my hips, and I'm not compensating my squat form, but I want to mimic a very perfect squat on the wall with the band. So this one would be great to hold for 2 to 3 minutes. So we're in a supine position, just lying on the floor, just holding and just letting the fascia melt away so we can really get a nice, good, deep stretch. I hope you really enjoy these stretches. These are some of my favorites. I think they're awesome for your hips. They're awesome for your back. They should take your movement to a whole new level, which should hopefully take your workouts to a whole new level. If you like these stretches and you're interested in more stretches like this, I would definitely check out the GoWOD app. So they're gonna have a per type, a per zone, a per tool. You could click per type, you could click banded stretching, and you can scroll through and figure out what you wanna target, what you wanna work on, and then it'll put a timer with that stretch. So it's just another great tool just in case there's other stretches that maybe you haven't seen on our videos or other areas that you're looking to target. This would be another great resource for you. I hope you've enjoyed this. Definitely, like I said, don't wait until something hurts or something feels too tight. Make sure to make this part of your daily routine, and it should take your training to a whole new level. Make sure to check out the links in our bio for everything we've got going on. We're getting ready to release some hotel workouts. So if you're somebody who's always on the road and has no idea what you should be doing in a hotel room, we're gonna have 50 workouts for you that you could just pick and choose from while you're traveling. Keep an eye out for that. Make sure to subscribe so you can see when that's released. Have a great day.